Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Peyton, and if you're new here, I am an ex-Mormon. That seems to be my niche on this channel. It wasn't intentional, just kind of turned out that way. I have been documenting myself deconstructing the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on my YouTube channel for the last year or so. And my first video that I ever posted on this is called Faith Crisis Part 1. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka Mormons. I posted this a year ago. As of right now, it has 1,815 views as I'm looking at it now. I have not watched this video since it was posted a year ago. So somebody recommended in my comments that I react to this video and see how much has changed in the last year. And I thought that was a great idea. Side note, my window is open for better lighting in here. We recently got our windows tinted because it gets really hot here in the summer. And now my lighting in here sucks unless I open the window and have direct sunlight. So I need to get a ring light. But I'm telling you that because now the outside noise is probably going to impact my video. I also need a mic, but I don't make money off of YouTube yet. So whenever that happens, I will invest in those things. So sorry if it is noisy. If you like this video, if you like this kind of content, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be updated when I post new content. So yeah, let's just get right into the video.
It doesn't matter what anyone's race is, identity, gender, whatever, any of that. We love everyone. Everyone deserves love and friendship and acceptance from us.
All right, so don't worry, my phone has like a mount up here, so I'm not holding my phone or anything. But I just wanted to talk for a little bit about a couple of things regarding my religion and my beliefs. It's a topic that I personally have taken major interest in, especially with kind of moving my life over to the internet in a more drastic way than ever before. I'm kind of planning in my head, about the possibility of people and things that they might say regarding my beliefs. For those of you who don't know, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is also known as LDS or Mormon, I think is, the most well-known term for a lot of people. And I have experienced things in my lifetime that can never sway my knowledge or beliefs in the fact that there is a God and that there is a heaven and we have angels around us, and that those who have passed on are angels. All right, so there's a part of me that kind of feels sorry for this version of myself. I might cry in this video. For anyone who says that I never had a testimony in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it is so far from wrong. It's hard for me to even respond to that. At that time, I felt that that was a knowledge and that I knew of these things. And I think that that was ingrained in me. If you're new here and you haven't been following along on a lot of these videos, I no longer believe in God. We'll carry on.
And spirit. Those things specifically, and that there are evil spirits as well. Those are things that I've specifically experienced in my life where, because I have direct experience with them, for me it is not a faith, it is a knowledge. Like I know that those things are real. I want to talk about what our church believes and what the doctrine says and where I'm at in my life right now. I'm currently a worthy member of the church, and so is my husband, and we have our 2 children. We are active in the church. My husband has a calling in the church. He is a teacher for the young men, and I do not have a calling as of yet. It's kind of scary talking about beliefs on the internet regarding the church, just because I've heard so many stories of people who might have questions about certain things and have been concerned about certain things in the church and have been excommunicated, for which is like being kicked out of the church. We believe the Bible to be the Word of God as far as it is translated correctly. So we believe in the King James Version. We believe that it's the most correct version out of all of the translations. Since I married a man and, I don't question that decision at all, it's not considered abnormal or different for me as a female to marry a male. Not considered abnormal. And so that wasn't something that was a difficult decision for me by any means. I, love him with all my heart. I love him more and more every day. But because I did marry him and I knew that, this is going to be forever, I don't have to really address the other feelings that I've ever had. There's no denying that, I've had those feelings and experiences, and I feel like automatically people might be assuming that this is, maybe she's like bisexual or something. And no, I'm not, because I have been all over Google because my feelings were not something that I had ever heard before. And, the feelings actually make me feel like a garbage human being sometimes. Now this side of me, does it bump into my marriage sometimes? Yes. However, it's only something that I personally battle with. I talk about it with my husband all the time, but it's not something that bothers him at all.
So I've mentioned a lot about this a few times on my channel. This has come up. Some people have made assumptions. Some people think I'm lesbian from some stuff and don't realize that I'm married. And some people think I'm bisexual and all of these things. And there's a name for what my sexuality is, but I forget it all the time. But I also don't know how true that is, because there are certain aspects of my sexuality that I've never explored before that I don't intend to explore because I'm married. But it does make me feel uncomfortable that I feel that way. I am worried about people coming to certain conclusions that are even worse. So a part of me feels like I want to explain, but part of me wonders if maybe I would be bisexual if I had ever experimented with dating women, but it's hard for me to think about that, I think, because of just religious things. And I very obviously have always had an attraction towards men. It's been like the strongest forefront of my sexuality and who I am, but I've dealt with a lot of thoughts on sexual relations with women, but not romantic relationships. And the reason it makes me so uncomfortable is because in a way it almost makes me feel like I'm viewing women as objects as opposed to a human being if I'm interested in them one way and not the other. But I wonder, maybe I would have romantic feelings or could have romantic feelings for a girl, but just never went there, and so wouldn't know that. And like, maybe I thought it was only sexual and not romantic because of like religious conditioning. So I don't really know, but I just wanted to kind of explain it a little bit because I'm worried about people coming to like way worse conclusions when I talk about being uncomfortable with what I think my sexuality is. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I'm married and so happy, and Colin is who I want to be with for the rest of my life, and I love him for so many reasons. That would be a whole different video.
It doesn't matter what anyone's race is, identity, gender, whatever, any of that. We love everyone. Everyone deserves love and friendship and acceptance from us. Like, it is not godly to do anything besides that, to judge somebody, to tell them what they're doing is wrong, to even be I don't know, it's just like, even though our church teaches these things, we do still have structures in plan that are very what's the word, traditional, man and woman kind of thing. And so sometimes I think people can see that as like, okay, well, you're telling everybody to accept everybody, but then you're only allowing men and women. And I will say that's that's a very big controversial thing. Personally, for me, it's hard for me to understand. Hello. Okay. So I don't have a lot of time right now, but I was doing some research last night, and I have found that there is a name for the way that I'm feeling about my church and my religion and everything like that. It is not a name that is taught by our church or like approved by our church. It's just like nicknames that people came up with. I don't know. Progressive Mormon, which is the one that I identified with the closest. And that was people who are Mormon to the core. These are like core beliefs and values. But we desire to help mold and shape the future of the church. So basically meaning, you know, in other words, that there are some things that we feel should change or might change, certain like adjustments that, or things where we're like, I might not like completely agree with that, but it doesn't just completely diminish my testimony in the church by any means. It's just kind of like a, I don't really know how I feel about that. But it doesn't take away from, you know, our core beliefs and anything like that. So I think that's what I would personally identify as, just because that I relate to that one the most. I was always very orthodox, and I think just like I just like always said, what does my church believe? What do my parents believe? And then I'd be like, oh, okay, that's what I believe. And I just kind of adopted those beliefs because, you know, everyone I knew in the church, and my parents are people that I just trusted, and you know, I felt like my parents were very smart, so everything that they said, I just kind of believed everything, and I would just kind of adopt those beliefs onto myself. And during that time, I definitely developed my own beliefs, and a lot of them were things that I was taught. However, you know, I had my own experiences where, you know, I was truly able to feel like, yeah, that is true. This is something that I do believe. But there were definitely other things that, you know, never ended up really clicking, or maybe there were things that I felt like clicked, but I never really asked a lot of questions or got into like much detail about it. And now, as I'm getting older and I'm wanting to learn more and develop more of my own opinions and views, I'm starting to ask a lot more questions, and not only in my religion, but also like politically. My husband doesn't want to call it this, but
yeah, I remember this feeling and, realizing that my orthodox beliefs in the church were becoming a lot more progressive. And I was realizing that there were a lot of things that I had questions about that I didn't ask or didn't look into, and just decided to have faith regardless. And at this time in my life, I wanted to learn more about what my views were politically, because I was always so scared of politics and forming opinions on politics, because I just felt like it caused fights and contention, and I just didn't want to get into it. It felt very overwhelming. And then growing up and having kids and having my own home and working in the world, realizing that, the way that you vote truly matters, and it affects the future of, not only our lives, but our children's lives. And I want a good life for my children, and I want to vote for that life. So as I was learning more and trying to develop those political beliefs, I was realizing that some of my beliefs didn't line up with the church, and I started having more questions about the church, and this kind of started happening.
Opinions and views, I'm starting to ask a lot more questions, and not only in my religion, but also like politically. My husband doesn't want to call it this, but we, and I guess since I'm using this word, I am in a faith crisis. We're not forming opinions on anything that, at least from the get-go, we're not forming opinions on anything that is information not accepted by our church, which honestly isn't even how we would typically go about researching and finding information about anything else. But with this, we want to be on the side of our church, and we want to know what our church is teaching and saying and approving to be true, and studying that before forming opinions on other things surfing around the internet that are not accepted by the church. I wanted him to come up here because he's kind of been on this whole journey with me, and because I came to him with a lot of questions, and he was like, that makes a lot of sense, or that doesn't make sense, and just kind of similar concerns started growing within him too.
I think Peyton definitely did approach me with some questions about the things that she was having a hard time with, or maybe just didn't fully understand, or maybe was never taught. And to be honest, I didn't know the answer to some of them. Some of them I had a vague idea, but really it led to me also wanting to research and know okay, well, what got me here was a question around authority. I've had some personal experiences, with close family members where people in positions of authority within the church acted inappropriately, and then were not held accountable for their actions by the authority above them and the authority above them. And that started to kind of stir up this question in my mind about how authority within the church works, and how it's divided, how it's managed. For example, if you want to go to the temple, you have an interview with a bishop to determine whether you are living in accordance with the laws or rules or principles that the church teaches. Whether your testimony or belief in the things is where it needs to be, which
if you support the leaders and authority.
Yeah, you support the local leaders and authority within the church. Which that isn't necessarily in and of itself the problem to me, but the way that I perceive God and the way that works is that no one is the authority over anybody's relationship with God. So, I mean, that was kind of like the foundation for a lot of my questions, and you know, that kind of leads you down a path of starting to question, like, okay, well, if this person has authority, who they get it from? If this person has authority, who they get it from? And it can go all the way to the top of the church, to the president, the members of the first presidency, the quorum of the 12, the 70. It can go all the way up to the top.
I would like to be as close to like blunt and honest as we can be, so people see the seriousness of what we're saying. But this is like sexual assault charges, stalking, like harassing.
Yeah, definitely harassment.
Involving, you know, with the stalking also included like stalking minors to get information about the person that they were looking for.
Yeah.
Very serious stuff. So
yeah.
Carry on.
So anyways, that had happened.
Yeah, this was something that happened with a close family member of Colin's within the church, and it was a bishop. And, you know, I think Colin goes on to explain it here, but it went through several different leadership positions within the church, and it went all the way up to the 70, as it's called, which is directly beneath the quorum of the 12 apostles, which is directly beneath, you know, the first presidency and the prophet of the church. So kind of like a pyramid system there, but multiple people wanted to sweep it under the rug and not do anything about it, and that caused a lot of questions for us. And, you know, we just didn't really feel like, you know, going through this many people in the church that God wouldn't approve. And that's what we felt at this time.
That the person that was above that person, and then the person that was even above that person, we're not going to hold this individual accountable, remove them from that position.
Which is stuff that could get somebody incarcerated. Like, it's not just
this wasn't some minor thing. This was a major issue that needed to be called out and addressed immediately. And it was eventually addressed after more and more people were involved, but it should have been something that was resolved day one.
Something that I did want to mention too, that was a part of the story that I didn't know, that was taught to me differently, was I was taught that Joseph Smith practiced polygamy, but I was taught that it was during a time that polygamy was legal and that other people were doing it. It wasn't just our church. It was just a normal cultural thing that people did, and that the reason people did it was because that there were men going off and either fighting in war and dying, or getting sick and dying, or traveling like far away and not coming back, assuming because they died. And that there were all these women and children who were getting sick and starving and dying because they needed to be provided for by men, because that's the way things were back in the day, where women were helping to raise their children and men were providing for them. So when all of a sudden they didn't have their man who was providing for them, that, you know, they would struggle financially and with food to eat and stuff like that. So that's what I was taught. And then come to find out, it was illegal. It was being practiced like, you know, without being legal. It was just being practiced illegally. And then someone like published an article about it or something.
Well, so I do actually believe that it wasn't illegal until later, and that's when the church, well, the church wasn't being forced, at least when they were in Utah, being forced to stop, because Utah was a territory, not a part of the US at that time. But once they wanted statehood, at that time, I know for sure there was a law that said that it wasn't allowed, so that's what they had to stop.
Mm-hmm. So it didn't start illegally, but even after it became illegal, they continued.
My kids will have the ability, and that's another thing that's kind of made this search more and more like pressing, and like, okay, how are we going to raise our kids? Like, what kind of perception of the world are we going to give them? What kind of views on like their own agency, their own choices are they going to have when they're here? And I want to teach them that they're allowed to believe or not believe anything that they want when it comes to their faith, but they're going to have all the information to make those informed decisions. Like,
you want to know something sad too? Do you remember, like, before we even had kids, me like sobbing to you about like knowing that I always wanted to be a mother. I've always wanted, you know, lots of kids.
Yeah.
And it has always felt like my purpose on earth. It's just felt like it's been at the core of who I am. And I questioned whether or not I even wanted to have children and bring them into this earth. And then it like narrowed down specifically into like obviously wanting to raise them in the church with our beliefs, because I want them to have, you know, this happiness and joy that we have. But I don't know how to keep them safe from people in the church who will hurt them.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it's not the church's fault. It's just there's a lot of child molesters. There's a lot of this or that, and like people are gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, you're so dramatic," blah blah blah. No, I'm not.
And from
It's
Peyton's,
not just my experience; it's lots of
from
people's.
Peyton's past videos, she's talked about her experience with sexual abuse growing up, and that gives her and myself, now being married to her, this new perspective on like, okay, what positions could our kids be put in where they are at risk to be in harm's way, and
realizing a lot of weird messed up rules.
Realizing that the church and, you know, interviews that are conducted with young children, with just young children,
8 years old.
as young as 8 years old, with just them in the room with the bishop being interviewed for their baptism, or you know, when they turn 12, or to move up into young men's or young women's, like these very young children being put in a position where it's not even just like, oh well, nothing's gonna happen, these are good people. Number one, it has happened
Lots of
times.
So many questions, and we don't want anybody to take our word for anything. Like, go and do the research yourself. We will list, you know, resources that we've been finding in the description box below, and just you can kind of like look for yourself and see where we're coming from on a lot of this stuff. And I don't know, it's a lot. We're on this journey together. We are not at a point where we are, you know, trying to get our records removed from the church, which is basically like pulling ourselves out of the religion. We're not at a point where we're doing that, but we're at a point where like all of these issues are coming up, and we're realizing how serious they are, and we're getting into it like more and more and more, and just, you know, hoping and praying that the church can like give us some type of like answers or responses that are promising, and help to give us hope for things. And it's not happening right now. But I just want to continue to make these videos and create this content to, you know, hopefully I want to have like this series on my channel of like our journey through all of this, and you know, maybe some of this stuff gets answered and solved, and you know, we are able to find our way like back into the faith that we had before, and maybe we don't, and maybe things go the other direction. And you know, I don't really know where we're headed at the moment, but I just want to bring you guys along with us, and you know, it's probably going to be the easiest way to share like our journey with friends and family who might be confused by this. My kids are really upset, so I really need to go get them. Please subscribe so that you don't miss any of these future videos. Comment below if you have any questions or concerns. Anything goes, really. And yeah, I love you guys. Bye.
Yeah, I remember a lot of those feelings regarding parenting and wanting to keep our kids safe. And, you know, you can't keep your kids safe in like really any organization, even at school, stuff like that. Just stuff is gonna happen. Life sucks. There's stupid people out there, and I'm not gonna blame schools or blame the churches as a whole or anything like that, but I think it's messed up, and I think it's important to hold people accountable for their actions, and the church time and time again was not holding people accountable for their actions, and still doesn't. I think all the way as high up as the prophet, there are people doing really sketchy stuff, and there's a lot of financial stuff within the church that I really disagree with. I mean, there's so much that happens since then. I obviously have I have 18 videos in my faith crisis playlist on YouTube. And I think I went up to 5 videos, maybe it was just 4, that were like faith crisis ones before we ended up deciding to leave the church. And for those who don't know, now I'm atheist. So, and that's, I'm perfectly open to the idea of that changing one day and having different beliefs. This is what I am right now. And I love to learn and I want to keep learning, and things are great in my life now. And anybody who says that there's no happiness outside the church, I have more happiness and peace outside of the church than I ever did in it, which I wouldn't have thought possible, because I always thought I believe that I was happy, and I believe that I had a good time, and I believe that I felt like I belonged there and all of that. It's different on the outside looking in. I feel like while you are actively a part of the organization, there's goggles that are on that keep you from being able to see things differently, that make you feel like you're right and you know that you're right. I feel like some people say that about me. They feel like I think I'm right and all this stuff because we left, and that's not true. I'm just living my life and learning as I go, and decided that I didn't feel that the church was right anymore, and so I left. And right now what feels right is living my life in a way that is so authentically me, and doing what feels right to me and avoiding what feels wrong to me, and not trying to force any type of feelings around, what's going to happen after we die. That's it for today's video, guys. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed already, please make sure that you do that and help support my family and allow me to stay home with my babies and make money. I really love doing this. And if you comment below any future video ideas, or just want to have a conversation or have a question about anything that you saw, my husband and I really like to take a look at our comments and respond to some of them and whatnot. So go ahead and do that. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.